What's good, y'all? It's your boy BioSpider 3.0, keeping the action going with the 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters figure by Hiya Toys, man. I am super excited. It's about time for this review, ain't it? If you haven't seen my unboxing of this video, make sure you watch that. I did a brief unboxing of this guy as well as the... Should I keep it a secret for you guys? Well, I guess it's not really a secret because my thumbnail already kind of gave it away. But it is the Mafex Mark 50 Iron Man from Avengers Infinity War. So if you haven't seen those unboxings, be sure to check that out. So yeah, I already pretty much went over the packaging in that video. Real quick, I got it here. It's backed up because it is a pretty wide package, but it looks pretty awesome, man. Pretty cool stuff. We got a cool shot of Godzilla here in the front, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now in that video, towards the end, I started laughing as I was going over the packaging because I was thinking of a review that I watched by Corrupt Pixels. I'll be sure to link his review in the description so you can check it out. But it was funny, man, because he was basically pointing out that like all over the packaging, they just pretty much write the title, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla King of the Monsters, you know, even on the top. In the bottom, it's almost like they kind of like ran out of ideas or maybe shots to use for this packaging, so they just kind of put the title of the movie like all over it. And but yeah, that was a really funny thing watching him explain that, going over the packaging and everything. I could tell he had a good time making that video, but you know, that's awesome to see. But yeah, here we are, man. So without even really wasting any more time, you've already seen the packaging. If you haven't, be sure to see the unboxing, but I'm gonna go ahead and crack this baby open because I am excited. Godzilla. This is my first Godzilla figure in a long time. I haven't really owned a Godzilla figure since I was like a kid. And of course it was, you know, based on the original design, the original Japanese design from those movies back in the 1900s. But I finally got my hands on this modern day version of Zilla here. And I am super excited because, believe it or not, this is my favorite modern day version of Godzilla. You can see here he is. He comes in a giant clamshell, alright? So we got two clamshells on him. You can see him in there. You can already see the massive size of this guy, which I love. That's one of the things I want to get into, is that I really love right off the bat the size of this guy, first and foremost. I think it looks awesome. Yeah, man, this is my favorite like modern day design for Godzilla. The kind of 2014, 2019, 2021 version, you know, from all the movies. I really love it, man. I know I saw -1. I did see that movie and I thought it was amazing, honestly, man. It is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time. I really did like it. And I do like that design of Godzilla as well. I think, you know, the Japanese designs, they always kill it. I mean, Godzilla was, you know, a Japanese, you know, fictional character, right? So I always love their designs, but I still feel like I have a little bit more of an affinity for this particular American design of Godzilla after seeing like all the movies and stuff. But -1, I do like it a lot. I'm not knocking -1 at all. That design style, I really do like it. That Godzilla was an absolute savage, man, and I think they killed that particular design. But I don't know, something about this one, I just like it. I like the organic style of this Godzilla, and you know, the realism to him. Like, I feel like he has a look, obviously, you know, it's CGI, right? But I feel like he has a look that is very somewhat realistic. Like, he looks like a creature that could have existed on Earth, you know, back in the day at some time. You know, he's the apex predator, right, from underground. So but yeah, I just like it. I think he's got a lot of cool design elements to him. I feel like he looks like a giant Komodo dragon mixed with an alligator and like a dinosaur or something, right? Like the plates of like maybe like a stegosaurus or something on top of like a giant Komodo dragon. And like, believe it, I don't know, this might seem random, but I feel like he's even got like some bird-like features in there, like to his design. Particularly his face. I feel like the head sculpt kind of resembles like a bird at certain angles and stuff. Like, especially when he's looking like dead on. I'm gonna get him out of this packaging real soon, but especially like when he's looking dead on, I feel like this design, he kind of reminds me of like an eagle or something. Just the way like his head shape kind of, you know, is drawn or you know, pictured in the movies. definitely I see like almost like some aviary type of features in him as well. So it's really cool. He just looks like a evolutionary monster, right? Really big and grand. I love it. But anyways, all that rambling aside, let's go ahead and pull him out of these clamshells finally. So there's one clamshell. Here is the second. And of course he is protected by some inner wrapping, some inner plastic inside here. Alright, so let's go ahead and free him from that. Let us free the beast from his constraints. Unleash the beast. Alright, so plastic is off now. And here we go. Oh man. And let me mention right off the bat that he does have a significant weight to him. He feels hefty, which I like because he feels like, you know, strong and kind of durable, like he's definitely packing some weight. And you know, he is a very he's a big boy in the movies, so you know that's very apparent. So I like that that is reflected in this figure right off the top. But see if I can get his arms a little bit. Okay, here we go. So here is the 2019 King of the Monsters Godzilla figure by Hiya Toys, man. Let's see if I can get his head looking a little more straight on. There we go. So there he is, man, out of the package. And oh, I love it. I love the aesthetics right off the bat. So let me turn him to the side here. It might be a little hard to get this guy fully in the shot just because I'm used to shooting my videos on this channel vertically. Right on the new channel, all my videos have been vertical style, so I might have to move him back a little bit more than the other characters we've seen, but no problem at all, man. Look at this Godzilla. Oh man, I love it. So obviously, you know, as far as like accessories and stuff, there are, I mean, at least maybe not obviously, but there are none. I'm just gonna put it out there. There are no accessories that come with this guy. I'll talk about that more a little later on, but I mean, it's Godzilla, right? I feel like you don't really need that many accessories, except for maybe like a blast effect or something like that. That would have been nice. But there are several different versions of this Godzilla that came out. And so, why don't we, yeah, matter of fact, let me just go ahead and talk about that right off the bat and pull him back closer into view here. So one of the things I do want to get out of the way is that Hiya Toys did several versions of this particular Godzilla design, right? So they originally did, I think, a 2021 release that was based on Godzilla vs. Kong. And that one, I want to say, had like a lighter paint scheme. I think the paint was like lighter on him. He was more of like a lighter gray. And he had like, you know, a wash and things through him. You can see on this one, they did a really nice paint wash for the chest right here. I really like that. It really fills out like the crevices in his chest so you can see all the details. He's got a really nice wash just throughout the figure, right? And so that kind of 2021 version had a very similar paint style. There was a wash, you know, present throughout his sculpt, but I think it was like lighter paint that they used, like a lighter gray, whereas this King of the Monsters version seems like a much darker gray. But I like it. I like this King of the Monsters scheme. And I was going to get the 2021 version from Godzilla vs. Kong, but they made an improvement actually between that release and this one. So in that 2021 release, they had like a somewhat unsightly, you know, hinge on the side of the jaw, right? So on his, I guess on his right side, yeah, they had like a hinge on the jaw right here that was very, you know, noticeable. Like you could see it very clearly. But you know, they remedied that problem, number one, on this new release. Not only that, but the gills right here, the plastic pieces that kind of make up the gills right here on that 2021 release, when you went to articulate his head to look up, you would get this kind of weird gapping in the middle. Like, so like this is kind of like three separate plastic rings right here that kind of stretch and mold to, you know, help the figure's articulation. And on that 2021 release, you would get a lot of weird gapping in between right here, so much so that you could see like the peg that was inside, and that was you know, allowing the neck to you know, arch up like that. And so they remedied that on this figure, which is another reason why I went with this particular version. So I just wanted to point that out. So yeah, they definitely did work and improve on fixing some things between that release and this one. And I really, really appreciate that. You know, Hiya definitely paid attention, and they saw, I guess they probably saw reviews of their, you know, product, that 2021 version that people were doing, and I'm sure they paid attention to the feedback, and they kind of fixed those problems with this release. So I am very, very happy that you know, this release, they, like, again, they fixed that stuff, and it looks great. I mean, it did dividends, man. I mean, really fixed that problem. So let's go ahead and get into articulation. All right, so for play and display on this bad boy, might as well segue right into that. So we've got, again, the head can look up pretty good. I believe there are like multiple ball pegs in between here, and obviously they're well hidden now, which is great. I really, really like that. But yeah, you can arch his head to look up pretty well, I mean, honestly. So you can get about that much, right? Looking up, looking down. You can look down about that far, which isn't all that much, I won't lie to you. It's more like he's looking kind of just, you know, straight on. But, you know, you can kind of, let's see, for the torso articulation, if you kind of bend him down a little bit, or like kind of bend his knees, right? Make sure, obviously you want to make sure he's got a good stance. Might be a little bit difficult to balance, just because, again, he does have like a significant weight to him, especially with the tail in the back. So a lot of his weight is gonna naturally want to pull him back. But if you spread the legs out a bit, maybe manipulate the tail some as well, maybe have it a little closer to the ground, you can kind of get him leaning about, you can get him, you know, leaning a little bit to kind of help out that look down action, you know, get that look down action. So, you know, it is kind of tricky. You do kind of have to play with him, and that's one of the things that leads me to my next point, is that SH Monster Arts, you know, they've been doing the Godzilla figures for a long time. So NECA was doing Godzilla figures, I think, back like when the first movie came out, like in 2014, and their figures are pretty good. You know, the only thing with NECA is that they tend to focus more on sculpt and paint compared to articulation. Their figures do articulate, right? So that obviously they're not static or anything, but you know, they tend to focus more on the paint and sculpt aspect of their figures. So they weren't, you know, as articulated, maybe say, as like this guy or the SH Monster Arts version. Now the SH Monster Arts version, again, the reason that I decided to go with this Hiya Toys instead of the SH Monster Arts version is for several reasons. The SH Monster Arts, they did, it's more pricey, number one. So I was looking, I'm not exactly sure what the retail price is for the SH Monster Arts, but I do know that looking online, they tend to go for about like 80 to 165, like plus, like it depends on where you look, honestly. So I know I saw some on Mercari today that were about like in the $140, $160 range, and then I think the one of them that hasn't been sold yet is for like a 200, right? And then that's aftermarket prices, so you do have to take that into account too. You know, the aftermarket, people are definitely gonna, you know, shoot the prices up like crazy. But that being said, the SH Monster Arts retail prices are more than this guy, like, period. So this guy goes for, I think I got this guy, I'll have to check, and I'll put the price in the exact pricing in the description if I can find it, because I did get this guy a little while ago, so I have to go back and check out exactly how much he was. But I want to say I think base price was about 57, and then after tax and shipping it came out to maybe like 60 something. If I had a ballpark, maybe like 65 or so. That's not bad. And most of the Hiya Toys Godzilla figures that are like, you know, like this one, they all go for around like 50-ish bucks. So you're talking about maybe 50 to 70 maybe dollar range, depending on like where you live, like after you factor in tax and shipping and all that. The SH Monster Arts versions, they're already like more expensive. Base price for this guy, for their version, is gonna be like at least like $80 starting out, right? And then you have to add in shipping and tax, and then depending on where you get it, it might be well into the $100 range, like 100 plus 120. I think in Corrupt Pixels, in his review, he mentioned that they go for like about 120 for their version. Not only that, but I feel like the SH Monster Arts version, it doesn't look nearly as screen accurate as this one does. That was another thing that pulled me to the Hiya Toys version, is that their version to me looks way more screen accurate and just an overall better sculpt than the SH Monster Arts. The SH Monster Arts, in comparison, and I don't mean to sound rude, but I feel like the SH Monster Arts version looks almost derpy, like when you compare it to this version. Like their head sculpt, something about it just seems off to me. Like it looks a little weird. I think, like, especially like from the front and like the side, I feel like something about their head sculpt just seems a little like, I don't know, he almost looks like like, just kind of silly, and it doesn't quite remind me of how he looked in the movies. Whereas this Hiya Toys version, I feel like they definitely nailed the likeness as far as like the movie goes. I mean, look at that. Like when he's looking dead on at you right there, doesn't that remind you of the movie? It sure reminds me of the movie, man. Like this is how Godzilla, I think, looked in the movie. This is, again, based on the King of the Monsters movie, which came out in 2019. But I mean, I feel like it definitely reminds me a lot of how he looked in the movie. I mean, it's like they took the CGI render from those movies and just kind of like pulled it out and got it in plastic form. I mean, this is like the materialization of how he looked in those movies right here in front of us, and I love it. I think they honestly like killed it. Again, I really do love the paint, the sculpt, and the overall size of this guy is bigger than the SH Monster Arts. The SH Monster Arts version, I forget how tall it stands, but I know that it is definitely significantly shorter than this version. Like the build is smaller, and the overall height, when you stand him up, he is significantly smaller than the Hiya Toys version right here. So those are just some of the points I wanted to get out of the way in the beginning, because just to let you know why I decided to go with this version over the SH Monster Arts. Number one, it's cheaper. Number two, I think it has better overall paint and sculpt as far as like the accuracy and likeness. And yeah, and it with that, as you're gonna see here in a minute, the articulation is almost completely on par with the SH Monster Arts. The SH Monster Arts does have better articulation. I am going to admit that, all right? So I want to get that out of the way, that it definitely does have a better set of articulation, because, SH Figure Arts and Monster Arts, they specialize in that kind of stuff, right? But this Hiya Toys version comes damn close, man, like really, really close. And to get it for, a significantly cheaper price, I mean, I think it's no contest. I say the Hiya Toys version wins, every time. But that's just me. You guys might not agree, and I would definitely say, watch reviews of the SH Monster Arts version before you make your decision. Like, don't just, automatically jump on this guy just because I'm reviewing him and maybe you like him. I would definitely say do your research, right? Always watch multiple reviews on the figures that you want to get. So I would say watch the SH Monster Arts reviews and then watch the Hiya Toys reviews, and just ask yourself, like, is it really worth spending $80 to $100+ on that SH Monster Arts version, which is smaller, doesn't really have as good of a paint job, and I think it comes with an effects piece that might be a plus for you. But I mean, honestly, the articulation is like barely better than this one. So I feel like it's kind of a trade-off. You're getting better paint, I would say, on this figure, because the SH Monster Arts, it's almost just like a flat, like dark gray or black. There's no real like shading or wash throughout the figure that like you can see on this Hiya Toys version. So I would say better paint here, better size, cheaper, and does almost the same thing as far as articulation goes that the SH Monster Arts does. So that's why I chose to go with this guy, but that's just me. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I know I rambled for a long time there. I wasn't exactly sure how I was gonna break, the aspects of this guy down, what order I was gonna go. But yeah, I guess, that's my reasoning behind getting this Hiya Toys version. So getting back into play and display, our articulation factors, right? Moving on to the arms. Okay, well actually we'll stay with the head since I started with the head. One major thing I want to mention is that it does have an articulated jaw. If I can get it open. His mouth is closed right now, but it does articulate. Okay, there we go. Get a little separation in there. And it's nice and tight on the hinge, so you can open the mouth, which is awesome. Look at that. So you can have Godzilla roaring, right? Looking like a beast. Not only is the jaw articulated though, the tongue inside is articulated as well. And it might be a little tricky to first, get it to move, but hopefully you have nails and you can kind of just get your nail to slip on, like on the top of his tongue and just kind of pull down, and you can get it to go up or down. So you can see that, see his tongue right there. Now you can see it inside of his mouth. Now I'm gonna push it back up. See that? Now it's a little bit higher, closer to the root of his mouth. And so yeah, man, you can pose it. And I mean, as small as a detail as that is, I feel like it does wonders, especially if you're gonna do photography of this figure. I think it's gonna really make a difference, because I've noticed in certain shots, I even sent my friend a shot of this figure when around the time when I bought it, and I told him, how excited I was about it. And he said, oh, that he looks kind of weird in that shot. He said something about the face looks kind of weird. And I remember him mentioning that the tongue placement looked weird. And that's because in that shot, they had his tongue all the way up to the root of his mouth while he was roaring. And I told him, I was like, well, the tongue is articulated, so you can move it down. If you feel like that looks weird, you can always put it down like that. Maybe that looks a little better to you, right? So, man, I mean, there's just so many great options that you can do with this guy, and I love it. I really love it. So that is for the jaw and all that. For the head, as far as turning to the side, if you really crank on, all those, and again, all these, there's separate rings of plastic right here that, articulate and move as you move the head. So you got different ball pegs and things inside of here working all together. So you can really crank his head to looking to one side like that, as well as the other way, the opposite side. You can have him like that, right? So he's got some good looking side to side. You can definitely get a lot of wiggle room in there. And yeah, man, you can just you get a lot of nice playability on this head, and it feels nice and tight and stable, not loose or it's gonna break. It feels very quality, which I love. Right, so again, you already kind of saw how much you can look down. So this time I'm showing it with the mouth open, but you already saw about how much he's able to look down. Just using these hinges on their own. And again, it's not that much, I will admit that it's not that much, but when you take into account that you can also, bend them over a little bit, you can always articulate some of the legs and the mid torso to have them looking, hunched over a little bit more. I mean, I think that's a good trade-off, right? So going into the arms, arm articulation, you can raise. He's got a nice cut right here, and I love how they sculpted the shoulders, man. He looks like a beast. I know a lot of people say that this design, they don't like it because he seems kind of fat or whatever. I mean, it's Godzilla, bro. He's, at least this particular version of Godzilla, he's always been, I feel like Godzilla is a hefty character, just overall a heftier, guy, right? So I feel like he should have a little bit of thickness in his torso and stomach region, because I feel like, he's not a human. He's not gonna look cut or a human would, a superhero, right? He's not gonna have abs or anything like that, but he's definitely got that substantial weight. And I think maybe people mistake all this for fat. I don't think this is really fat, man. That's more muscle built up. Because a lot of people have that it's that misconception people have about sumo wrestlers. Sumo wrestlers, I used to think this too, right? Because they look fat, right? They look like big old fat people, right, when they wrestle. But I remember reading about it. Sumo wrestlers actually do have a lot of muscle packed under all those under all of what seems like fat, which it probably is. I'm sure. I mean, obviously they have probably a pretty good percentage of body fat, right? But under all that fat, they actually pack a lot of muscle, and that's why they're so strong and they're able to do the things that they do. So I feel like Godzilla is almost kind of a representation of that, even though he looks like he's kind of bulky, he's got the dad bod going for sure, right? he's got a lot of muscle packed into here, and you got to keep in mind that he's an animal, so he's not going to look like necessarily, he's a reptile, right? So he's not going to look like super cut or anything like a human would. But I like this. I really like this particular design of Godzilla. But anyways, all that to say, back into arm articulation, I really like the sculpt of the shoulders. That's what I was getting at, right? So that you can kind of like, he looks you know, menacing, because he's got like these muscular shoulders and stuff, right? And so the arms can lift up, arms can go all the way up like that, and I think you can rotate them 360. Let's see how far. I don't think I want to rotate them all the way if he's able to do it, just because I don't want to, you know, rub this too, because this is like a pretty tight, there's not like a whole lot of give right here as far as like the spacing in between the sculpt, and so I don't want to scratch off any paint or anything. But it seems like he can kind of go almost 360, even if not like a perfect circle. His arm is going to start kind of coming out, but it feels like if you push that all the way, you can rotate that pretty much all the way around, coming back forward, and it's nice and tight. Look, you can probably hear that. Listen, you hear that? You hear them gears grinding, that plastic. And I know that might not sound like a good thing for a figure person, but I mean, on this figure, it feels good because it doesn't feel like it's scratching any paint or like it's gonna break on you. It's nice and tight, it's solid, the joints feel really good. He's got a hinge right here at the end of the forearm, or where the forearm meets the bicep. So, and it's nicely hidden too. Like the paint actually matches with the rest of the arm, so that's really good. It's well hidden in there, you can barely see it. Unlike what Hasbro does with a lot of their figures. Hasbro, wink wink, maybe work on that, right? But I'm glad that they kept the paint color pretty much the same there. So again, it is well hidden. You can bend the forearm about that much. So if you want to see the side angle, or I guess I'll do it with this arm, right? See that a little better. So you can get him to bend at almost a 90-degree angle there. Bring it back, move this arm back down. Coming back, we'll work with this arm. For the hands, you can rotate them all the way around 360. They're nice and tight, and they are on a hinge, so he can hinge inward, or he can hinge out that much, hinge in about that much. I think that's pretty good. I think that's plenty. All right, you can rotate it. Oh, crap! Hey, sorry y'all, ran into the camera there. This guy's so big, I don't have a lot of room to work with, but anyways, yeah, you can rotate that, have his hand go up a little bit more or down a little bit more. So very, very cool, almost like the workings of a figure arts wrist. So you get a lot of play there, so that is really, really awesome. Let's see, Godzilla. All right, so going into the torso, you see we have a nice torso cut here, but it is nicely hidden. You know, it's not too noticeable. So it still looks nice as far as the aesthetics go. You can rotate that, and it will be a little bit tough because the dorsal plates, when you first take them out of the package, they are going to kind of like run into each other. So you want to make sure you kind of like lift. You want to get this big dorsal plate on this back, like the biggest one right here in the middle, to kind of move past this one right here when you go to rotate it. All right. So you can see right now I just did that, and after doing that, I'm able to get some rotation out of the spine in the back, right? So I'm able to get him to turn his torso that way, get his body leaning that much that way, and then I can do the same thing with the other side. Again, got to move that dorsal plate out of the way, and then you can get him turning to the opposite side. Get a little bit more crank on it. Yeah, so you can get him going to the other side just about the same amount. So there you go. All right, so that is the mid-torso articulation. Coming back to the legs here. And look at these nice, beefy, strong legs, all right? This is a big, strong creature right here. So you can raise the leg up about that much. So if you want to get him like kicking. I wish I could do like a really good Godzilla roar, but any one I do is going to be really bad, so let me not embarrass myself more than I already have. But anyways, you can kick up about that much, coming back down right there, bending at the knees. You can see he's got a nice cut for the knee joint, top and bottom, so you can get him to bend like from his calf down. You can get him to bend back about that much, and extend this back out about that far. All right. And then for the feet are on a hinge, I believe. Yeah. So you can kind of get them to hinge down. They go about that far before they run into the sculpt in the back. So you can get the foot moving down a little bit, coming back up about that much. And then let's see, you can rotate as well. So you can get the foot rotating to each side like that. And it probably goes, yeah, looks like it goes 360. So yeah, you can turn the foot all the way around like so. All right. And again, those joints feel nice and tight, so I really like that. But yeah, man, so yeah, I think that's pretty much it for like the front articulation. Now let's get to the most important part, the tail. Oh yes, everybody loves a nice Godzilla tail, right? So we got to make sure that you know, this articulation is on point, which it pretty much is. For what's given here, I would say it articulates pretty well. So from what I've seen in other reviews, there are 9 total points of articulation, 9 different ball pegs inside this tail. All right, so 9 different articulation points basically for you to kind of curve this tail around. Now it still doesn't get maybe like the most range, but again, it's Godzilla. He's not the most fluid necessarily of characters, or most graceful, but in a strange way he is though, right? Like even with all this mass and brutality, right? He still is like an almost majestic creature, right? So he can definitely still do some things. So let's see what we're working with when it comes to the tail. So you can see the cut right there for the start of the tail. You're able to kind of rotate it to each side just a little bit. Or at least, let's see, right now I'm able to move it to the left, it seems, or right, depending on which way you're looking at them. As far as the other side, not so much, kind of gets stuck there, but no biggie, no biggie. So yeah, it might be hard to sight, I can't talk, it might be hard to see, but there are like 9 different segmented joints in this tail where they have like ball pegs inside. So as far as like curving, let's say you want to curve his tail up. So you can get the tail to curve up about that much naturally, and it does kind of fall back down right here. I think maybe the ball peg just might not be quite strong enough to support the weight, but so it is going to kind of fall a bit back down. But you know, if you hold it up, you can get it kind of curving up about that much. So I think that's decent. Coming back down, obviously you can get it straight. You can get it to come to the ground again. As far as curving, right? I think that's what everybody wants to see, a nice good curve to the side. You want to kind of move the segments, I think, like in succession. So you want to kind of start with each joint and kind of pull on it, you know, in a cascading type of order. I would recommend maybe not grabbing the whole tail and just kind of trying to yank it to one side, because then you might break your figure. And I know I did see a review by, I think it was, what's his name? I think it's Custom Comics or something like that, or it's Comic something in his name. I'll try to find his review and link it in the description as well, because I really enjoyed his review and like the comparisons that he did. But yeah, he was saying that he had to basically like heat up some of the ball pegs in here before, because I guess one of his ball pegs was kind of seized and he wasn't able to really like move the tail in a certain direction. But once he heated it up with the hair dryer, it you know, it pretty much loosened up and he was able to do what he wanted with it. So that's that might be something that you might have to do, so just take that into account. So just be careful with that. Use a hair dryer and maybe just heat up the tail a little bit, and then hopefully those ball pegs will kind of expand a little bit from the inside and give you a little more play. But as far as like curving, yeah man, you can get a nice curve out of this tail. So you just want to kind of slowly go down the line and like really play with it, right? And you can get a decent bend out of that. So you can see right now is when I turn him straight on again, head first to the camera, now you can see his tail wrapping around to the side over here. So let's see if we can get that same range going to the other side. All right, so let's see here. So we'll do the same type of method, kind of play with each little ball peg in the back. Ooh, okay. Thought I heard something snap there, but it's all right. Sounds like we're still good. So yeah, you just want to be careful, kind of maneuver those ball pegs around. All right. And again, you don't want to crank on it. You don't want to put too much stress on any of the ball pegs or any of those pivoting points, because you could risk breaking it. But it seems like he has the ability, excuse me, to get a pretty good curve to each side. So I noticed that going this direction, it is taking a little bit longer than the other one, but it seems like it is working. You just gotta have a little bit of patience, that's all. All right, just kind of loosen up some of those joints. He is fresh out of the package, so a lot of his joints are very tight, as they should be. All right, but after playing around with it, getting some of those things to loosen up, and again, I haven't even put a hair dryer to it yet, if I decide to do that. But look, now you can see his tail wrapping around to the other side. See that? So you can get, boom. Now you got pretty much the same, almost like a mirror image of what I just showed on the other side, right? So I think that's pretty good, man. So here's like a side view, so you can see a little more of like how much the tail is curving. I'll put it like this. This view right here should give you a good sense of how much he's able to curve his tail to, you know, one side or each side. And I think that's pretty good. You can definitely get him doing his thing with his tail, right? Like he's ready to whip somebody. So that is dope, man. I think that's a pretty good good batch of articulation. I'm glad. I really like that they handled the tail like that. There's like so many different ways they could have went about it. They probably could have put like, excuse me, like bendy wire or something like that in the tail. And like the way that the plastic and the overall sculpt of this tail is designed, I don't know if like bendy wire would have necessarily been like the best choice to put like inside. I think ball pegs was probably a much better choice, even if it's like multiple ball pegs. But I think that just overall helps his articulation probably a lot better than bendy wire. But I'm not sure, you know, I ain't no action figure engineer, but I have definitely learned some things watching different reviews and stuff. I mean, I love the game of action figures and learning about, you know, what makes them, you know, great, you know, a good figure versus a great figure, you know what I mean? So, and I feel like so far this feels like a really good figure. I'll put it like that. Maybe not a great figure, but a really good figure. And I think it's more than worth the price that it's asking for. Again, Hiya Toys, come on y'all, like around 50-ish bucks basically, right? Let's say 50 to maybe 70 bucks max that you're gonna be paying for this guy, compared to SH Monster Arts, like 80 to 100 plus range. I mean, come on, man, it's no competition. I mean, look at this thing. You've seen what he can do as far as articulation, like the actions he gets, all that good play and display action, right? And then look at the paint on him. I mean, look at that. I've heard people say that they kind of wish maybe